I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks, welcome. Hey, thank you so much for being with us. It's Friday. My name is Paul. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine, and we got to have your help to do it. We got a lot of show to get through today. We have Congressman Bruce Westerman, who will be on at 7:33. We had a kind of a snafu last week. We rescheduled the congressman. He'll be on coming up at 7:33. I, of course, was out yesterday taking a under-the-weather / personal day, so you have to forgive me for that. Didn't plan on it, but telephone number 870-275-9799 if you would like to contribute to the conversation today. That's the number, 870-275-9799. So in the coming weeks, I don't have these. I think I do have this date. I think it's going to be the first Wednesday in August, actually. We're going to be interviewing here on Conduit News a Texas border county sheriff, the border county of Hudspeth. And that's going to be fantastic. I don't know if you guys realize this, but he essentially, in anticipation of the left in this country trying to confiscate guns or make weapons illegal. You know how you have all of these sanctuary cities for illegal immigration. Well, this sheriff said, well, you know what? We're a sanctuary county for the Second Amendment, and so we're not going to allow the federal government to take away your Second Amendment rights. And I've got this over here. It's published, written by Teresa Beckmeyer over at the Gun Owners of America. Pro-gun sheriff charges ahead for the Second Amendment and with the sanctuary resolution. So really excited to bring you that story here in the coming weeks. Again, telephone number 870-275-9799. It is Johnny Cash Friday. We're going to get to as much Johnny Cash music as we possibly can, while at the same time peppering in the news and events of the day. But the thing that I missed yesterday was all of this Robert Mueller coverage. I mean, I watched on Wednesday most of the day. When I got off the program on Wednesday, I was watching the hearings of Robert Mueller. And I told you guys, I mean, the hearing had commenced about 2 minutes before we were getting ready to sign off. Or at least that's when I noticed it on Wednesday. And I just happened to, so I clicked on it during the break. And if you guys were watching the whole show Wednesday, you know this is true. I clicked on it during the break, and I was watching it. And I was watching about, 2 minutes of it. And then we came back on, and I was telling him, I was like, guys, this doesn't look right. This Robert Mueller looks very uncertain and weak. I think I used the word weak. And so I got off the air. I immediately continued watching the hearings. And boy, it was a snooze fest. It was really hard to stay involved, but I did. But I mean, I just was like, wow, this is really, really bad. Now I know you had Jerry Nadler. There were two hearings on that Thursday or on that Wednesday. There was you had the hearings with Jerry Nadler in the judiciary, and then you had the hearings over at the intelligence community with Adam Schiff. And so Jerry Nadler, this Democrat, he goes through his opening statement, and there were initial headlines. If you remember, the media jumped on this early on. The initial headlines by about 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning were that Mueller doesn't exonerate Trump, right? And there were contradictions in Mueller's testimony. But what was obvious by the end of the day, Mueller did such a poor job that Democrats are now, I'm talking about Democrat pundits, are agreeing with Republicans in that Mueller did not write his own report. Now, you could say that pretty much about anybody in this situation because you're going to have a staff of attorneys and everything else. But to clarify the point that Mueller did not write his own report, Mueller clearly had very little to do with the specifics surrounding the investigation. Mueller was a puppet. Mueller was a figurehead, is what some Democrats are even saying. I'm talking about over the folks over at MSNBC as they were lamenting the lamentations of the left in the media. They were so upset all day, or all day Thursday, all day yesterday, but then Wednesday night. I mean, it was really something to behold, considering the networks have been telling the people for 2 years about Donald Trump being a KGB agent and how he's in the White House because of Russia. And it's just laughable when you actually know the truth about Hillary Clinton and the Russians, when you actually know the truth. So later that afternoon, Devin Nunes of the Intel Committee, after Adam Schiff gave his opening statement, Devin Nunes gave his. And I wanted to start here this morning because I know I'm doing a little makeup coverage, but I'm sorry, it's Friday, and we do the things that we didn't get to do this week. Here is Devin Nunes, and by the way, we interviewed him. You can check this out. I got to sit down with Devin Nunes last year. You can check that out at conduitnews.com. Here is Chairman Devin Nunes questioning Robert Mueller, his opening statement that afternoon, and it is fantastic. Listen to this.
Mr. Chairman, welcome everyone to the last gasp of the Russia collusion conspiracy theory. As Democrats continue to foist this spectacle on the American people, as well as you, Mr. Mueller, the American people may recall the media first began spreading this conspiracy theory in the spring of 2016, when Fusion GPS, funded by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign, started developing the Steele dossier, a collection of outlandish accusations that Trump and his associates were Russian agents. Fusion GPS, Steele, and other Confederates fed these absurdities to naive or partisan reporters and to top officials in numerous government agencies, including the FBI, the Department of Justice, and the State Department. Among other things, the FBI used dossier allegations to obtain a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. Despite acknowledging dossier allegations as being salacious and unverified, former FBI Director James Comey briefed those allegations to President Obama and President-elect Trump. Those briefings conveniently leaked to the press, resulting in the publication of the dossier and launching thousands of false press stories based on the word of a foreign ex-spy, one who admitted he was desperate that Trump lose the election and who was eventually fired as an FBI source for leaking to the press. After Comey himself was fired, by his own admission, he leaked derogatory information on President Trump to the press for the specific purpose, and successfully so, of engineering the appointment of a special counsel who sits here before us today. The FBI investigation was marred by further corruption and bizarre abuses. Top DOJ official Bruce Orr, whose own wife worked on Fusion GPS's anti-Trump operation, fed Steele's information to the FBI even after the FBI fired Steele. The top FBI investigator and his lover, another top FBI official, constantly texted about how much they hated Trump and wanted to stop him from being elected. And the entire investigation was opened based not on Five Eyes intelligence, but on a tip from a foreign politician about a conversation involving Joseph Mifsud. He's a Maltese diplomat who's widely portrayed as a Russian agent, but seems to have far more connections with Western governments, including our own FBI and our own State Department, than with Russia. Brazenly ignoring all these red flags, as well as the transparent absurdity of the claims they are making, the Democrats have argued for nearly 3 years that evidence of collusion is hidden just around the corner. Like the Loch Ness Monster, they insist it's there, even if no one can find it. Consider this. In March 2017, Democrats on this committee said they had more than circumstantial evidence of collusion, but they couldn't reveal it yet. Mr. Mueller was soon appointed, and they said he would find the collusion. Then when no collusion was found in Mr. Mueller's indictments, the Democrats said we'd find it in his final report. Then when there was no collusion in the report, we were told Attorney General Barr was hiding it. Then when it was clear Barr wasn't hiding anything, we were told it will be revealed through a hearing with Mr. Mueller himself. And now that Mr. Mueller is here, they are claiming that the collusion has actually been in his report all along, hidden in plain sight. And they're right. There is collusion in plain sight. Collusion between Russia and the Democratic Party. The Democrats colluded with Russian sources to develop the Steele dossier, and Russian lawyer Natalia Vesnitskaya colluded with the dossier's key architect, Fusion GPS head Glenn Simpson. The Democrats have already admitted, both in interviews and through their usual anonymous statements to reporters, that today's hearing is not about getting information at all. They said they want to, quote, bring the Mueller report to life and create a television moment through ploys like having Mr. Mueller recite passages from his own report. In other words, this hearing is political theater. It's a Hail Mary attempt to convince the American people that collusion is real and that it's concealed in the report. Granted, that's a strange argument to make about a report that is public. It's almost like the Democrats prepared arguments accusing Mr. Barr of hiding the report and didn't bother to update their claims once he published the entire thing. Among congressional Democrats, the Russia investigation was never about finding the truth. It's always been a simple media operation. By their own accounts, this operation continues in this room today. Once again, numerous pressing issues this committee needs to address are put on hold to indulge the political fantasies of people who believed it was their destiny to serve Hillary Clinton's administration.
A media
It's time for the
operation.
curtain to close on the Russia hoax. The conspiracy theory is dead. At some point, I would argue, we're going to have to get back to work. Until then, I yield back the balance of my time.
Again, all right, that's Congressman Devin Nunes. Go ahead,
To
Scott.
ensure fairness and make sure that our
Congressman Devin Nunes, that was his opening statement in the afternoon hearings in the Intel Committee. That's you understand why I started there? Because when you lay out those facts, this also dawned on me, by the way, as far apart, and even the media talked about this, how congressional Republicans and congressional Democrats aren't even on the same planet when it comes to this. Like, there's not really any middle ground at all. It's just they're completely different. And I think that's also produced that's produced average American citizens who are also not anywhere in the same world when it comes to this particular issue. Now, I actually think there are more Americans that know this has just been a crock from the beginning than there are that don't. The ones that, and I hate to just kind of editorialize this because I know there's always exceptions, but from what I can tell, the people who are so anti-Trump, many of them didn't really care anything about politics until Trump was elected. And the only reason they care now is because the media is somehow telling them that their government, i.e. president, is not a decent man. He's not decent. He's not decent. And they ignore the indecencies of Obama and because the media never covered them. And so in many cases, people's faith, really what we have is a condition where many Americans have had such a faith in the idea of a, quote, decent government, which is really actually very indecent many, many times over, but that's made them feel comfortable. It makes them sleep well at night. And now they have a media telling them that that's not the case, and it's kind of like a Chicken Little situation, and the sky's going to fall. We're just constantly waiting for it, too. And in the meantime, they're not going to tell you about all of the good things that have happened, all of the positive. They're not going to tell you how the Donald Trump presidency is actually a presidency of change. It is an agent of change in this country so far, I think, for the betterment of Americans and even the world. And you know, on that, what are the odds that the Mueller testimony is a disaster for Democrats, and as soon as it's evident and realized, North Korea test fires a missile? Somebody tell me the odds behind something like that happening. I don't know. My gut feeling was, well, maybe the North Korean government is also not monolithic, just like our own government is clearly not monolithic. We're going to take a break. Back in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. I want you to welcome back to the program. We've got with us the Texas director for the Gun Owners of America. Rachel Malone is back with us. Rachel, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So glad that you're up with us this morning. And I saw this, and this is why I wanted to have you on. We haven't really talked about this, but there's something that's being pushed through the Senate right now, the Violence Against Women Act. And, you know, with a title like that, how in the world, would there be anything wrong with it? But there's some gun language in there, isn't there?
Absolutely there is, and you're right. I mean, how can anybody oppose something that helps keep women safe? But it's just a disguise to try to push through red flag laws and gun control.
I saw your piece up at gunowners.org, why women oppose the Violence Against Women Act. So, I mean, why is the Violence Against Women Act actually not good for women?
Well, in a nutshell, it's not good for women because it simply purports to take more guns away from more people. It sets up a structure So that any dating partner or former dating partner can go get an ex parte order, meaning they can go to a judge by themselves without the other person being there to defend themselves, and they can say, oh, my former dating partner is being abusive. I don't think he or she should have guns, and the guns are taken away from that former dating partner. And the insidious thing is that, of course, this hurts women who might actually have been in an abusive relationship, and the abuser is accusing them, the victim, of being the abusive one, and maybe that woman has a handgun for self-defense and is trying to get out of that abusive relationship. And so the gun could actually get taken away from the victim, from the innocent, law-abiding, peaceful victim who's trying to be empowered and take care of herself and maybe get out of a dangerous situation. And taking away her means of self-defense means maybe she's stuck in that abusive situation. So it actually increases potentially violence against women.
Isn't this kind of also like it sounds like it's like a red flag law, right? Because
Absolutely. It's red flag law. It's just, they tried to bring up red flag laws, and grassroots reacted strongly against it. So they said, oh, you know what? Okay, we won't do red flag right now, but let's just rebrand it. Let's just call it something else and bring it right back up. And, of course, you can't turn down something that protects women, right? So that's exactly what they're doing. It's a red flag law.
It's like, yeah, let's title the bill to cure cancer. I mean, that's what they do. That's what this is. We've seen this movie before. Okay, so I'm quoting your piece. Many women like myself carry guns for self-defense from thugs and criminals. But provisions in the Disarm Women Act would allow for any dating partner or former dating partner to strip a gun-owning woman of her constitutional rights with just a phone call to a judge. A woman's guns are confiscated with no warning, no due process, just like a red flag law. In fact, we've had a lot of experience with these quickie proceedings, and we know that they are often used by an angry ex to extract revenge on a former partner. And then you talk about a California example. So this is not hypotheticals. We actually have, these instances where it's actually happened. Tell us about California.
Exactly. So California has a red flag law, and this is one of many examples we could use, but there was a cheating husband who used his state's red flag law. He used California's red flag law, went to the judge and said, oh, my abusive wife has a gun, please take it away. And they took away his wife's Glock under the red.
All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, 870-275-9799. Johnny Cash Friday. We appreciate the participation that I'm seeing on Facebook. And we want to remind you guys that you can like the show on YouTube. We would appreciate that. YouTube.com, and search for Conduit News and click the little bell to receive notifications after you hit the subscribe button. That would really help us out. We're kind of going over the aftermath. We're in the wake, if you will, of special counsel Robert Mueller's testimony that was an absolute disaster for the Democrats. It was such a good day for Republicans. When you have ABC News' Terry Moran in the, because the network, it was a media frenzy, okay? The networks went wall to wall with this coverage. They were broadcasting it. This is the moment. This is when they're going to try to take down Donald Trump once and for all. This president who is such an agent of change in terms of the status quo being uprooted. You have, the global order of things being uprooted as well because of what he's doing. And you have Terry Moran on ABC News, one of this big network telling the people that the Democrat Party didn't get what they wanted, that it didn't move the ball, that Robert Mueller, it seems, he said, wasn't even in charge of the Mueller investigation. Now, I want you to understand that. That was actually said on ABC News, that Robert Mueller wasn't actually in charge of his own investigation. It was a hypothesis, and it was attributed to Republicans, but it was still said on ABC News. Now, if you're a sheep and you've been listening to these people for 2.5 years, what do you think you thought when you're like, wait a second, so it wasn't real at all? It was all a bunch of nonsense, everything we've been told? A lot of people waking up this week. Back in just a moment with more.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. But provisions in the Disarm Women Act would allow for any dating partner or former dating partner to strip a gun-owning woman of her constitutional rights with just a phone call to a judge. A woman's guns are confiscated with no warning, no due process, just like a red flag law. In fact, we've had a lot of experience with these quickie proceedings, and we know that they are often used by an angry ex to extract revenge on a former partner. And then you talk about a California example. So this is not hypotheticals. We actually have, these instances where it's actually happened. Tell us about California.
Exactly. So California has a red flag law, and this is one of many examples we could use, but there was a cheating husband who used his state's red flag law. He used California's red flag law, went to the judge and said, "Oh, my abusive wife has a gun. Please take it away." And they took away his wife's Glock under the red flag law. So, I guess he's afraid of her finding out and getting free from him. I'm not sure exactly what the situation was, but yeah, that's how he used it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's a huge problem. So what's going to happen? I mean, you think this is going to get through the Senate? I mean, I know it got through the House.
Right. So right now it's in a little bit of state of limbo because it's summer and they're taking some breaks. So it passed the House. The Pelosi's House was very excited about it, and there was you could definitely say there was a bipartisan vote. It was not just Democrats who supported this bill in the House, and that's why we're worried about it, and that's why we need a lot of public pressure in the Senate. So the Senate is looking at it now. I was in D.C. with GOA a few weeks ago to meet with some staffers and let them know in no way, shape, or form should they ever consider anything like a red flag law. I specifically let them know that when...
All right, folks, welcome back. On this Johnny Cash Friday, 870-275-9799, we have an interesting clip that you need to see. I think the fact that Congressman Rick Crawford is on the House Intel Committee, the Permanent Select House Intelligence Committee, goes so underreported in the state of Arkansas. That's why I've tried my best to highlight it, especially considering everything that's going on. I mean, we all know that the way the legislative process works is, depending on which committee you get on, it definitely determines what kind of impact you're going to have. And the fact that Congressman Rick Crawford is on the Intel Committee gives the people of the 1st District of Arkansas, I believe, a unique voice in the proceedings, a direct line into the proceedings of one of the biggest scandals in American history, and that has to do with the deep state doing what they did. James Comey, James Clapper, all of these people, and Congressman Rick Crawford is on the forefront of this, and I think he's representing the people of Arkansas so well. So during the afternoon hearings on Wednesday, Congressman Crawford got his 5 minutes to ask Robert Mueller a few questions, and he decided to focus on the text messages between Lisa Page, the lovers, and Peter Strzok. Here is Congressman Rick Crawford from Wednesday. Listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Mueller, for being here. Days after your appointment, Peter Strzok texted about his concern that there's, quote, no big there in the Trump campaign investigation. Did Strzok or anyone else who worked on the FBI's investigation tell you that around 10 months into the investigation, the FBI still had no case for collusion?
Who? Can you repeat that?
Peter Strzok.
Could you? I'm sorry. Can you move the microphone a little closer?
Sure. There's
Thank you.
a quote attributed to Peter Strzok. He texted about his concern that there is, quote, no big there in the Trump campaign investigation. Did he or anyone else who worked on the FBI's investigation tell you that around 10 months into the investigation, the FBI still had no case for collusion?
No.
Is the Inspector General report correct that the text messages from Peter Strzok and Lisa Page's phones from your office were not retained after they left the special counsel's office?
Well, I don't. It depends on what you're talking about. The investigation into those Peter Strzok
He's shaking. Look at his
went on
hand
for
there.
a period of time, and I'm not certain what it encompasses. It may well have encompassed what you're adverting to.
Okay, let me move on just real quickly. Did you ask the department to authorize your office to investigate the origin of the Trump-Russia investigation?
I'm not going to get into that. It goes to internal deliberations.
So the circumstances surrounding the origin of the investigation have yet to be fully vetted then. I'm certainly glad that Attorney General Barr and U.S. Attorney Durham are looking into this matter. With that, I'd like to yield the balance of my time to the ranking member, Nunez.
All right, stop for a second.
Thank the
Stop.
gentleman, for you.
I do want to get to what Nunez asked because it was important too. But anyway, that's Congressman Rick Crawford. That's Arkansas's first congressional delegate. And he did an excellent job. Of course, Robert Mueller doesn't answer what we already know the answer to, which is they never had any evidence. They had a phony dossier that was paid for by a British, that was paid for by the Democrats, put together by a British spy who had contacts with Russians who were feeding him this information. And yet, the headlines out of at 9 a.m. on Wednesday were Mueller saying that Russia wanted Trump to win. Now, I mean, we can go into this. Again, I don't think the Russian government's monolithic either in this, but there's other bits of information here that paint a completely different picture. Now, if you were to ask me, I mean, what do I think? What do I think Vladimir Putin would want? Like, do you think Vladimir Putin wanted Hillary, or do you think Vladimir Putin wanted Trump? Well, I think Vladimir Putin would have wanted Trump, and the only reason is, I don't think Vladimir Putin wants war. But I think Hillary Clinton did. I mean, I think, and I've said this before, but if Hillary Clinton had been in the White House or had won the election, we would be in a proxy war right now in Syria against the Russians. That's what would happen. That's where we would be. We almost did it with Trump in the White House. I mean, I remember what was said during those debates. I remember also, I mean, I don't remember it, but I know enough about history to know that the left and the media in this country used to love Russia when they were fully communists, when they were full-on communists, and they were part of that movement that was advancing across the world. They loved them, just like they love China now, and they won't tell you the real danger is China. All right, let's keep going here. Here's Devin Nunes. Congressman Rick Crawford from Arkansas yields the balance of his time back to Nunes, and Nunes says this.
Yielding. Mr. Mueller, I want to make sure you're aware of who Fusion GPS is.
This is great.
Fusion GPS is a political operations firm that was working directly for the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee. They produced the dossier. So they paid Steele, who then went out and got the dossier. And I know you don't want to answer any dossier questions, so I'm not going there. But your report mentions Natalia Vesnitskaya 65 times. She meets in the Trump Tower. It's this infamous Trump Tower meeting. It's in your report. You've heard many of the Democrats refer to it today. The meeting was shorter than 20 minutes, I believe. Is that correct?
I think what we have in our report reflects it was about that length.
So do you know, Fusion GPS, the main actor at Fusion GPS, the president of the company, or the owner of the company, is a guy named Glenn Simpson who's working for Hillary Clinton. Glenn Simpson, do you know how many times Glenn Simpson met with Natalia Vesnitskaya?
Myself? No.
Would it surprise you that the Clinton campaign dirty ops arm met with Natalia Vesnitskaya more times than the Trump campaign did?
Well, this is an area that I'm not going to get into, as I indicated at the outset.
Did you ever interview Glenn Simpson?
I'm going to pass on that.
According to, I'm going to change topics here. According to notes from the State Department official Kathleen Kavalak, Christopher Steele told her that former Russian intelligence head Trubnikov and Putin advisor Surkov were sources for the Steele dossier. Now, knowing that these are not getting into whether these sources were real or not real, was there any concern that there could have been disinformation that was going from the Kremlin into the Clinton campaign and then being fed into the FBI?
As I said before, this is an area that I cannot speak to.
Is that because it's not in the report, or or because of an ongoing
internal
investigation?
deliberations, other proceedings, and the like.
Okay.
Other proceedings.
When Andrew Weissman and Zaneb Ahmed joined your team, were you aware that Bruce Orr, Department of Justice top official, directly briefed the dossier allegations to them in the summer of 2016?
Again, I'm not going to speak to that issue.
Okay. Before you arrested George Papadopoulos in July of 2017, he was given $10,000 in cash in Israel. Do you know who gave him that cash?
Again, it's outside our ambit, and questions such as that should go to the FBI or the department.
But it involved your investigation.
It involved persons involved in my investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We will stand in recess.
And that is Congressman Devin Nunes. So in light of all of this, and I wanted to tell you that, I wanted you to listen to that just so you could understand. I mean, the Republicans on this committee, on this Intel committee, actually grasp what it is that happened. They're actually willing to ask questions that need answers. The Democrats were just about making Trump look bad, and that's all they cared to do. Like, well, what can we do? What sentence can we pick out of this report and read to make Trump look bad? Not actually trying to get to the bottom of things. Man, I'm telling you, this is unbelievable. I am I was shocked all day yesterday as I was looking over the headlines. Shocked, I tell you, shocked. Now, there were a few people on the liberal websites that were trying to make up for the fact that their own networks, the liberal networks, have essentially conceded that this was a terrible day for Democrats, terrible day for the idea of impeachment. But for the most part, I was shocked that this actually backfired. I'm going to say it again. I keep saying this. They lay the trap for President Trump. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this. They lay the trap, and they fall into their own nets, time and time again. I mean, I'm not saying it's always going to happen, but it continues to happen. The mainstream media, ABC News, Terry Moran, MSNBC, the mainstream media said, well, gosh, after that testimony, it looks like Mueller was just a figurehead. He didn't really run the investigation at all. And yet you had all these liberals who were worshiping the guy, thinking he'll save us from Trump. You know, the YouTube video, have yourself a Mueller little Christmas. I mean, it's incredible to think that this has actually backfired against the Democrats. 870-275-9799 is the telephone number if you would like to contribute to the program. Backed by popular demand, let me find this one. Go to this Twitter handle. Go to Mike. Go to this Mike Doran. He posted this. Backed by popular demand, 2 years of Russiagate coverage in 2 minutes. This is what the mainstream media has been lying to the American people about. Here you go.
A bombshell.
Today is a turning point. Today was historically bad for President Trump.
Today was a turning point.
A turning point.
We're at a turning point here.
The beginning of the end for the Trump presidency.
We have another bombshell.
Mike Pence might have to assume the office of the presidency.
Rumblings of the word impeachment.
Breaking news.
Another bombshell out of the White House.
I believe this is the beginning of the end.
I do too.
It's really the beginning of the end.
He may be feeling the walls closing in on him.
All the walls closing in on him.
The walls closing in on him.
Breaking news, a new bombshell.
One astrologer says this means the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump.
Trump will resign.
Trump is going to resign.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it over and over.
You think this is a tipping point?
And over and over.
This is a tipping point.
And over and over.
Breaking news, President Trump off the rails.
It was the beginning of the end today.
The beginning of the end.
Breaking news tonight, new bombshell.
This is the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The walls are closing in.
The walls closing in.
The walls closing in.
Breaking overnight bombshell.
This is a very dramatic day, and I think it might be near a tipping point. Do you think this is a tipping point?
December 1st, 2017, you can mark it down. This is the day that everything changed.
The beginning of the end?
Beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
We begin tonight with the bombshell.
Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble.
Trump is in trouble.
The president will resign.
Another hour, another bombshell.
This is a tipping point.
Trump's going down.
This president could be impeached.
Resignation. I don't think this president is going to serve out his term. Mr. Trump will not serve out his term. He will not serve out his term. No way. No how. Breaking news.
Absolute bombshell.
Donald Trump is not. He's done. And it's over.
It's over.
The walls closing in.
The walls closing in. This is going to be the Achilles heel.
Breaking news tonight. I expect Trump to depart.
This week will be the watershed week.
Trump is in big trouble.
Trump's in a lot of trouble.
It's a sign of a terrified old man who feels the
walls
closing in.
The walls
are increasingly
closing in on him.
Tonight, the walls
are closing in.
Today changed everything. This is the beginning
of the end.
Today, the biggest
tipping point for the Trump administration.
What a historic day. The bombshells.
He's underwater. He feels
the walls closing in.
Turning point.
We may be at a tipping point.
It's the beginning of
the end.
The beginning
of the end.
Another bombshell.
Bombshell. Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
This is a bombshell.
It is.
It just oh man. So yeah. Oh man. Oh, it's just so heavy to me. It's so heavy to me. It's such a disconnect from reality. So honestly, this should generate sympathy for our fellow man. If I can be so bold as to say, the people out there who are parroting this idea of Trump and Russia. There's a reason for it, and it's called what Devin Nunes said. This has been a mainstream media operation from the beginning. And the media doubles down and are complicit with it, and they're actively, deceiving the American people here because they are trying to reassert their control. I mean, they lost the 2016 election. They were telling everybody that Hillary Clinton would win, and there's no chance. And then yet the media was wrong. Their polling was wrong. Everything was wrong. And so now, instead of having a little self-reflection and trying to present the truth to people, and, now they just, all they want to talk about is gender pronouns and how racist the country is that elected a black president twice. It doesn't make any sense, folks. But it should generate sympathy for our fellow man in terms of there are people out there who still believe that ABC, NBC, CBS, Norah O'Donnell, that Muir guy, CNN, Wolf Blitzer, Anderson Cooper, they think these people are trustworthy and are decent. And so often, as I have said before, what they really are, what the news media is today, are the equivalent of clergy in an oppressive theocratic regime. They are news priests, and they have a contradictory, hypocritical scale of morality. They can absolve you based on their coverage and completely ignore their own standards the very next day to condemn someone else, or rather they can condemn you and then completely ignore the basis on which they condemn somebody the very next day based on who the person is. Do they agree with their political goals or not? I'm not kidding you. The media today are essentially clergy in a corrupt theocratic regime. The equivalent of. Where it's, you've got to, where the dogma isn't really dogma, it can be bended, the rules can be bended. That's what we're seeing right now. And there are people out there that don't know. They're trusting these people because they put forward this cloak of objectivity, and they're not objective at all. So be patient with those of us. Be patient with those around us who just still don't get it, because they're reading from people who have an agenda and are not telling them they have an agenda. You can watch Conduit News and we are center-right. We're a center-right we're right of center is what I meant to say. You know this. But the other people, they're trying to say that they're just telling you the way it is. No, they're not. Anyway, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Texas tried to bring that up last year. Grassroots shot it down and made it clear that nobody was going to get reelected if they ever tried a red flag law. So I hope that struck a chord with some of our senators. But yeah, we're trying to encourage them now to get rid of all the anti-gun provisions in the Violence Against Women Act. The bill that what they're trying to do is a reauthorization, but adding a lot of stuff to the bill. And we just are saying, get rid of that extra stuff you're adding to it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's that, there's got to be, well, there maybe not, who knows, but there's probably some good things in this bill. The Violence Against Women Act. They've just now added this, and it certainly is a problem. And so, yeah, the goal would be for the Senate Republicans to just take this language out and pass it without it, and then of course we can get reauthorized. And I'm sure the House will throw a fit, but I mean, this really is something that is a foot in the door. We know that the left's goal, I mean, we've talked about this before, Rachel, but the left's goal is to confiscate our guns. It just is. That's what they want to do. And so any way to move that needle is a threat to us.
Exactly. And I say all the time, modern gun control, I don't think it looks like the legislature passing some law that immediately forces everybody to give up every single one of their guns and sending all the military to the door to take away guns. I don't think they're stupid enough to do that. But what they are going to do is pass bills like this that take guns away from select groups of the population. And they're conditioning people more and more to think it's okay to do that. So for the government to decide who from whom they can take away guns. And pretty soon, people are going to wake up and say, oh, now today I'm in that group that gets my guns taken away.
Yeah, you are exactly right about that. And, here's the thing with women, I would say in this situation, the point could be made that they're the ones that need the guns. If you're a woman and you're in an abusive relationship. Now this is interesting. Gene, that gun is an equal. On Facebook, Gene writes, would Donald Trump be president if he gave our uranium to Russia, deleted 30,000 emails, destroyed hard drives, was paid $500,000 for a speech in Russia, was caught on a hot mic saying, tell Vladimir I'll have more flexibility after the election? That's interesting. Now, all of those are Hillary Clinton or Bill, except for tell Vladimir I'll have more flexibility. That was Barack Obama back in the 2012 election. Unbelievable. Yeah, it's a really good point. We've got this audience is certainly on top of things. Folks, coming up in about 30 minutes, we'll be talking with Congressman Bruce Westerman. We'll be back on the program. Very interesting proceedings going on in the city of Little Rock concerning the officer that was in that shooting that resulted in the death of that motorist who'd been pulled over by the cops that refused to listen to the police officer to get out of the car. He pulled the car forward, and then the officer shot and killed the man. The car was stolen. I guess Lisa Hammersley has this over at Arkansas Online. A new Little Rock Civil Service Commission regulation allowing removal of cameras and other recording devices from public hearings collapsed. After about 7 hours, Little Rock officials, including City Attorney Tom Carpenter, fielded criticism about the recently adopted rule even before the start of the 8 a.m. termination appeal for former police officer Charles Starks, who was fired after a fatal on-duty shooting. And so the media was there for this termination hearing, this appeal, and they were mad that they couldn't record. Back in a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Forces everybody to give up every single one of their guns and sending all the military to the door to take away guns. I don't think they're stupid enough to do that. But what they are going to do is pass bills like this that take guns away from select groups of the population, and they're conditioning people more and more to think it's okay to do that. So for the government to decide who from whom they can take away guns, and pretty soon people are going to wake up and say, "Oh, now today I'm in that group that gets my guns taken away."
Yeah, you are exactly right about that. And here's the thing with women. I would say in this situation, the point could be made that they're the ones that need the guns. If you're a woman and you're in an abusive relationship, all of a sudden that gun is an equalizer. It's if anything a deterrent. And there's a lot of people. I know here in Arkansas we've had politicians, that certainly encourage with our constitutional carry situation that we have. If you are in an abusive relationship, we've encouraged like an educational effort to let a woman know that you don't need a permit, you don't have to get a permission slip from the government, that you can go arm yourself to protect yourself right now. And a lot of women don't know that here in our state. So, if there's going to be any chance that this law makes it harder for a woman to defend herself against and see, that's what's so interesting. It's very ironic that this provision is in the Violence Against Women Act, and hopefully that point, hopefully that point will resonate with some Republicans in the Senate.
Yeah, well, I think that if the feminists had any moral consistency, they'd be the best gun rights activists in the world, because guns empower women like nothing else. I grew up observing domestic violence, and it's horrible. I don't do anything to stop violence against women. But taking away more guns doesn't, because I've also seen women who are so courageous and ready to take the steps to get out of a horrible abusive relationship and protect themselves and protect their kids. And just mere gun ownership and the idea that for a woman who's being abused, the idea that, I could actually protect myself and my kids and I could get us out of here. I hate to see anything that strips her of that empowerment, and that's
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, thanks so much for being with us today. We really do appreciate it. It is hour number 2 of the broadcast. I found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. Appreciate this online audience, as well as the folks listening on radio across the state. We, let's see, what do we have here? Let's see, would those same media folks be equally as mad if the roles had been reversed? If the perp had killed the police officer? Ooh, that's interesting. Talking about this story here in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, the headline right now is that the mayor of Little Rock pushed for the firing of the Little Rock officer after the fatal on-duty shooting, according to police. This is also in line with the media being upset because during the termination hearing appeal, the officer has been fired, Officer Stark. The city banned recording of the termination meeting. Then they reinstated it. We have here, let's see, news media representatives and state open meetings experts argue that the commission's anti-recording regulation violated state open meetings laws and longstanding attorney general opinions about residents' rights at public meetings. We had the news director here, news director from KATV, Nick Genty, said his station's attorney had drafted an injunction to file in Pulaski County Circuit Court on Thursday afternoon that asked a judge to decide whether the commission's regulation was legal or not. Anyway, I do say one thing about people in the media. You start telling us that we can't record what you're saying and it's a public meeting where you're doing official business, I think we're still American enough to agree that that's un-American. I think most people think that that's ridiculous. Now, I would like to take it further. You know, these city officials that think they can have emails that are not subject to FOIA, that are conducting official business basically, digitally and getting to the predetermined outcomes that they want so that they can then have their show, their basically a theater spectacle, a theatrical thing where they meet in public, but they already know who's going to make this motion or who's going to make that motion. That's going on in city governments right now all the time, and it's very, very dangerous. Anyway, we need to talk more about that later, but that's the phone number, 870-275-9799. In other Arkansas news, I'll tell you how this affects Arkansas. The Daily Wire with this article. Attorney General William Barr orders first federal execution since 2003. And the first 5 people in line, one of them is an Arkansan. I think the first one actually is. Attorney General William Barr directed the Federal Bureau of Prisons on Thursday to adopt a proposed addendum to the federal execution protocol that clears the way for the federal government to move forward with executing 5 inmates who are all convicted child murderers. So William Barr is reinstituting executions, and the first 5 of them have to do with crimes against children. Quote, Congress has expressly authorized the death penalty through legislation adopted by the people's representatives in both houses of Congress and signed by the president, Barr said. Under administrations of both parties, the Department of Justice has sought the death penalty against the worst criminals, including these 5 murderers, each of whom was convicted by a jury of his peers after a full and fair proceeding. The Justice Department upholds the rule of law, and we owe it to the victims and their families to carry forward the sentence imposed by our justice system. The Department of Justice released the following information about the 5 individuals set to be executed. Daniel Lewis Lee, a member of a white supremacist group, murdered a family of 3, including an 8-year-old girl. After robbing and shooting the victims with a stun gun, Lee covered their heads with plastic bags, sealed the bags with duct tape, weighed down each victim with rocks, and threw the family of 3 into an Illinois bayou. On May 4th, 1999, a jury in the U.S. District Court of the Eastern District of Arkansas found Lee guilty of numerous offenses, including 3 counts of murder in aid of racketeering, and he was sentenced to death. Lee's execution is scheduled to occur on December 9th, 2019. The 4 others, Arizona, Missouri, Texas, and Iowa. All crimes against children. For example, the one from Arizona, Lesmond Mitchell stabbed to death a 63-year-old grandmother and forced her 9-year-old granddaughter to sit beside her lifeless body for a 30 to 40-mile drive. Mitchell then killed the girl. And it's just terrible things. Yeah, I know. I know. It's bad. I don't even want to continue reading it. But this is, I think a lot of people, they read this. I read this. I'm going to be honest. I was like, we're not doing executions? I didn't know this. I mean, what's the point of having the death penalty on the books if you're not going to? I mean, we should take it off the books if we're going to have it and then just not do it. Why? So anyway, there'll certainly be another debate on the death penalty now as this happens. But does anybody really want to defend these first 5? Step up to the plate, right? Anybody? You want to defend these people? No, not me. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Let's go to President Donald Trump. In the wake of the disastrous Mueller testimony, Donald Trump said this about the Democrat Party. We're going to go to that first one. There we go. And hit the play button, please.
The Democrats lost so big today. Their party is in shambles right now. They've got the squad leading their party. They are a mess. Where even you take a look at Scribe and you take a look at so many of the people that were the most outspoken, and they say this was a devastating day for the Democrats. And you know it, John, and everybody else knows it. This was a devastating day for the Democrats. The Democrats lost so...
All right, so that's Donald Trump on that. Let's go to the next one. Donald Trump sending a thank you to Georgia Congressman Doug Collins. Here is his statement after the disastrous Mueller testimony for the Democrats. Very good for Republicans. Listen.
When they tried to paint a picture today by putting up slides today and talking about obstruction and going through these different acts and even putting green check marks beside it, and then at the end when asked about it, Mr. Mueller says, I disagree with your theory or your interpretation. When we go through this, what we are seeing is, and in my committee, it's really interesting today because it was agreement on the one thing, that there was Russian and foreign interference in our 2016 election. But what has been the answer from my committee, my majority, and my chairman? To bring no bills forward, to bring no solutions forward. In fact, all we want to do is paint a picture of a president that they despise. They've done so since 2016, and for 7.5 months, that's 7 months, that's all we've done in our committee. Someone asked me yesterday, how did you prepare for the Mueller hearing? Didn't have to worry about it because that's all my committee talks about. For 7 months, all we talk about. And everything we've come up with is show hearings, dog and pony shows, running out old people from Watergate era. And what have we found? That the American people are footing the bill for a continuation of 2016 election that they don't like. So the question I have is,
well, you have the little
if we're going to paint a picture,
buffering circle,
then let's paint the picture of what's actually happening. You have a Democratic majority who has no agenda, who has a Democratic majority who has trouble bringing bills to the floor, who have a Democratic majority in our own committee where the very things that they talk about, immigration, election interference, and others, could be dealt with, but they don't bring any bills forward. In fact, even tomorrow, we're going to have another hearing to talk about the problem on the border instead of fixing the problem on the border. I challenge the Democratic colleagues, get over the election of 2016. Run in 2020 if you want. This president has put forward a great economy. This president's put forward great ideas. Run on those. Quit trying to dredge up a picture that today got painted that said your investigation is over. Mr. Mueller has done his job. He presented a report. Someone asked, did you find out anything new? The answer is no. We've had the report for 3 months, and Mr. Mueller simply said what was in the report.
Also, the president
collusion and conspiracy.
Tweeting out Devin Nunes's comments. We played some of those from the hearing last hour. You can check that out. But also the president. Go to the next tweet, Joe. Here's what Devin Nunes had to say in the wake of the disastrous testimony. Listen.
I think what you see today is collusion between the Republican Party and the Trump campaign is over. There was no evidence. There was a dossier that was built and paid for by the Clinton campaign. That was the real collusion. You had collusion through a British former MI6 agent who was working supposedly with Russian sources. We didn't get any new information on that today, but the Democrats have refused to accept reality. They live in an alternative universe. So I think, as Representative Collins said, and like we said today, this is over. And hopefully this will be the end of these hearings, because the House Intelligence Committee has important work to do. If you look at the national security for this country, there is nothing more important right now than passing the United States, Mexico, and Canadian agreement that's ready to go. If you look at the situation on our border, that has to be dealt with. We need real legislation to start to move through this House so it can get to the Senate. It's what the Democrats ran on. They promised solutions to immigration, and they're not delivering it. So, two pressing issues not being dealt with. Hopefully, after today, we will begin, when we get back here in September, to work on immigration reform and to pass this very important trade agreement.
We also played for you last hour Congressman Rick Crawford and his questioning of Robert Mueller. He did a very good job. You can check that out on the podcast. It's up at conduitnews.com or, has it been tweeted out yet, Joe? Yeah, it's been tweeted out. Oh, yeah, it's being tweeted out as we speak. So you can check that out as well. Just very, very interesting times that we're living in with all of this. It certainly is interesting to watch. And then, of course, as the Democrat Party is kind of self-destructing before our eyes here, and the Mueller, and there are people, again, not to rehash last hour, but when you have the mainstream media admitting that Mueller, that everything they've been saying has been a lie, that Mueller didn't even really run his own investigation. He didn't even know anything about his own report. The one person that found out the most about the Mueller report on Wednesday was Robert Mueller. When you have all of, we're supposed to then believe, as this is, I'm telling you, just self-destructing, this narrative is going away. What are the odds that North Korea then launches a missile? I'm sorry, but I can't help but go there. What are the odds that in the wake of this narrative, this clear offensive by the media, to destroy the President of the United States, and offensive by the Democrats, it's a huge victory for the President. He comes out smelling like roses. North Korea launches a missile. Iran launched a missile this morning. What are the odds of that? Now, the United States' official position on North Korea, they are urging them to restrain from further provocations. North Korea says they did this as a warning to South Korea. South Korea threw a little hissy fit. Listen, this is probably justified. Russia and China were flying joint exercises together or something. Did you read that? Like they actually had a joint mission, and that made South Korea mad. And so then that made North Korea mad, according to the official narrative. That's the official narrative that's being reported. The United States is saying we want to have a diplomatic engagement with the North Koreans. We urge no more provocations. This administration is committed to diplomatic engagement with the North Koreans, and we continue to press and hope for these working-level negotiations to move forward. Now, the media will no doubt take this and use it to slam the Trump administration. The left will somehow ignore the fact that they used to be the party of talks, diplomatic relations, and peace, and just ignore the fact that Donald Trump is essentially agreeing with their position for the last 50 years. They're once again upset that Donald Trump has stolen their girlfriend on this issue and is now trying to actually get peace with Iran and North Korea instead of going to war with them. It's fascinating to me to watch that, but you don't ever hear any sort of self-reflection on the fact that Trump's foreign policy is one of peace through strength, but a very big emphasis on peace. Because wasn't Barack Obama going to war with Libya about this time in his presidency? Telephone number 870-275-9799 if you want to contribute to the conversation. We've got Congressman Bruce Westerman on the program coming up at 7:33. We're going to take a break. It's Johnny Cash Friday. Back in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. To protect yourself right now. And a lot of women don't know that here in our state. So, if there's going to be any chance that this law makes it harder for a woman to defend herself against and see, that's what's so interesting. It's very ironic that this provision is in the Violence Against Women Act, and hopefully that point, hopefully that point will resonate with some Republicans in the Senate.
Yeah, well, I think that if the feminists had any moral consistency, they'd be the best gun rights activists in the world, because guns empower women like nothing else. I grew up observing domestic violence, and it's horrible. I don't do anything to stop violence against women. But taking away more guns doesn't, because I've also seen women who are so courageous and ready to take the steps to get out of a horrible abusive relationship and protect themselves and protect their kids. And just mere gun ownership and the idea of that for a woman who's being abused, the idea that, I could actually protect myself and my kids, and I could get us out of here. I hate to see anything that strips her of that empowerment, and that's exactly what this bill does. It disempowers women. It steps backwards for what women's rights activists have been trying to do for a long time.
Yeah.
Terrible bill.
It really is. Well, let's hope that it changes, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing, Rachel, and the work that Gun Owners of America is doing. And it's always great to have you on the program, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Paul. You too.
All righty. Thank you, Rachel. Folks, this portion of the program was brought to you by the Patriots of X 746. Now, if you don't know, the Patriots of X 746 are an Arkansas-based group. I mean, they're on the forefront. They're grassroots. They're cutting edge when it comes to this idea of constitutional carry in the state of Arkansas. Did you know that you don't need, according to the law, according to a court case, Taft versus the state of Arkansas, and according to the Arkansas General Assembly that just met, who passed 2 resolutions declaring that they agree with the Taft decision and that you don't need a permit to carry a gun open or concealed. The Patriots of X 746 has been advocating this since 2013, July of 2013. And they've been working with local law enforcement. They've been working with lawmakers, forming, basically just verbal partnerships and agreements about what the law says. And because of their work, we are more free to exercise our human right of self-defense. I mean, I want you to understand that. Like, that is such a success, and it is undeniably true that that's what the Patriots of X 746 has done. They have a massive grassroots army. You can find them on Facebook. If you go to facebook.com and search for the Patriots of X 746, it's a closed group, but ask to become part of the group. And it is certainly one in light of all of the corruption in Arkansas, and they're still fighting, because we do know the Arkansas State Police is they are at odds right now with the courts. Arkansas State Police are at odds with the courts, the judicial branch. They're at odds with the legislative branch, because they are refusing to publicly admit what the law says, how it was changed in 2013. But you still have prosecutors that won't charge people. You have police officers that won't charge people, and then of course you have the court case. But they are fighting for your rights, and they're having success. So I want you to go to Facebook. Here we go. If you haven't, this is when it comes to your Second Amendment rights. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. 870-275-9799 on this Johnny Cash Friday. One thing we missed, because I wasn't here yesterday, was the fact that Jeffrey Epstein tried to kill himself in his jail cell. Really? Attempted suicide. Now, there are actually different reporting on this, and I like to go by the early reports, because those are the one. If you report something you're not supposed to on Epstein and it gets corrected. And anyway, on really any story, there was conflicting reports. What did Epstein try to kill himself in his jail cell? Did Epstein, was he assaulted? Was it not a real suicide attempt? Was he attempting to get moved somewhere? There was different reports, but I have a story. There is an ex-cop who's being held in the same facility as Jeffrey Epstein. His name is Nicholas Tartaglione. Tartaglione. Okay, yeah. Tartaglione. Nicholas Tartaglione denies, his lawyer denies the client was involved in Jeffrey Epstein's jail industries. That's a story I have right here in front of me. I'm out of time here. Let me give you the rest of this story on the other side of the Bruce Westerman interview. Congressman Bruce Westerman is coming your way next. Don't go anywhere.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. I want you to welcome back to the program. We've got with us the Texas director for the Gun Owners of America. Rachel Malone is back with us. Rachel, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So glad that you're up with us this morning. And I saw this, and this is why I wanted to have you on. We haven't really talked about this, but there's something that's being pushed through the Senate right now, the Violence Against Women Act. And, you know, with a title like that, how in the world, would there be anything wrong with it? But there's some gun language in there, isn't there?
Absolutely there is, and you're right. I mean, how can anybody oppose something that helps keep women safe? But it's just a disguise to try to push through red flag laws and gun control.
I saw your piece up at gunowners.org, why women oppose the Violence Against Women Act. So, I mean, why is the Violence Against Women Act actually not good for women?
Well, in a nutshell, it's not good for women because it simply purports to take more guns away from more people. It sets up a structure so that any dating partner or former dating partner can go get an ex parte order, meaning they can go to a judge by themselves without the other person being there to defend themselves. And they can say, oh, you know, my former dating partner is being abusive. I don't think he or she should have guns. And the guns are taken away from that former dating partner. And the insidious thing is that, of course, this hurts women who might actually have been in an abusive relationship.
All right, folks, hey, welcome back.
It
is Johnny Cash Friday. It is Conduit News, and welcome. We've got Congressman Bruce Westerman on the line. Bruce, how are you, sir?
And is trying to get out of that
Great, Paul. Good to be with you today.
Absolutely. So what's been going on? What's going on in Washington, D.C.? What's your take on the stuff happening?
To be empowered and take care of herself.
You can go a lot of different directions on that, but actually what's going on this morning are people are heading out of town. We had our last vote before the August recess last night, so I'm planning to head back to Arkansas sometime around noon today. Got a lot of stuff planned in the district for the month of August, so I'm looking forward to getting away from this place for a while and breathing the good air of Arkansas and visiting with Arkansas folks.
You know, the last 2 weeks, I mean, the news has been extremely interesting. I mean, last week this time, we were talking about the squad. There was, you had, the president, I guess, singling the squad out, talking about how they seem to have a really significant problem with the basic principles, foundations of this country. And, I mean, it kind of went from there. What were your thoughts on everything?
I mean, you really have a socialist wing of the Democratic Party now, and you got these young socialist leaders in the Democratic Party that are becoming the voice of the party. Even the presidential candidates are parroting what these four say. I was on a conference call with President Trump yesterday morning, and he referred to them as AOC plus 3. I think that's his. Maybe he's trying out new nicknames for them, but that's the one he was using yesterday. And
also the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse. I've heard that one. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Congressman.
Yeah. Take the personalities out of it, take everything else out of it, and just look at what they're saying on the policies they're pushing. And it's not a direction I think. At least I really hope the majority of this country doesn't want to go in that direction, where you're, just demonizing everything that's made this country great over time, and trying to put policies in place that I believe would devastate our economy and devastate the way of life that we have, and do nothing other than make the government larger and put people we don't want it to have in control of what happens in our lives. So some of the things they say, it's almost like, you think, are they really saying that? Do they really mean they want to get away from all fossil fuels in 10 years? Do they really want to have open borders and free health care for anyone who comes to our country? And the answer is yes. I mean, these are policies that they're pushing, and it's the direction they would like to see the country go. So I'm glad we've got a president that will push back against that. I'm glad we've got a Senate right now that stops the crazy legislation that's being passed out of the House. That most of it's just messaging, and a lot of the messaging is based around what these 4 freshman Democrats are pushing. So you got the socialist Democrats that are setting the agenda and pushing the policy that comes out of the House, which none of it's really serious policy. I don't think if people could look at it and see it in detail, I don't think anybody would really give it the time of day. And then when you get serious policy that came out yesterday to raise the debt limit, there was no constraints put in with that. We've got this ballooning deficit. We've got debt that's approaching, or maybe even past $22 trillion. The accountants have been telling us for a long time that we're going to get to a point where interest on the debt is the single largest expenditure of the federal government, and we're fast approaching that. So we have responsibilities when we rack up this debt to pay the debt, which gives legitimacy to raising the debt ceiling. But my goodness, if we're going to raise the debt ceiling, let's put a plan in place to reduce the debt. And that bill yesterday had zero plan in it to reduce the debt. It was just to continue business as usual and not make any tough decisions. And I will say the administration proposed a lot of offsets, but Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer would have nothing to do with that. So we've got a broken process. It's something I'm continuing to work on, and I'll continue to work on it. But you feel like you're in a real minority when you're talking about fiscal stability and getting our budgeting going in the right direction. And honestly, I don't think it's that hard of a problem to solve. But the more we continue to increase the debt, the harder and harder it's going to be to solve it. We live in a world where you have this baseline budgeting that has built-in increases in it every year. And if you if they've built in a 5% increase and you only increase by 3%, then it's politicized as a 2% cut.
We're talking.
So you can grow.
I understand that, and I'm glad you're articulating it that way, because it is, we have people that just want to spend money, Congressman, and I know you're not one of those. But let me ask you this. I mean, I agree with you. The debt deficit is a big problem. It used to be something we talk about, a lot. I mean, I'll admit I haven't talked about it as much. Seems like we just kind of seeded the ground. We just, okay, so we're going to have this, we're never going to get serious about it. And, right now, people can make the argument, well, nothing bad has happened yet. So, I mean, I guess we can spend $30 trillion more on top of this. I mean, why not, And that is I think it's very dangerous. It's irresponsible. What it is doing stuff to the next generation. We're living, at their expense. It's very immoral when you think about it. But at the same time, there doesn't seem to be any, anybody in Washington that, has enough power to actually fix this problem.
Yeah, it's definitely a minority of the members of Congress who I think have the moxie to go in and fix it. And I think most people recognize that it's a problem, but it's so much easier to spend something that you don't have than to make a decision to say no somewhere. And the media doesn't help out at all, because like I said, if you've got a baseline budget that's saying you're going to have a 5% increase every year over the next 10 years, and you want to drop that down to just a 4% increase, well, the headlines are going to be, you vote to slash all these programs when you're actually spending more money this year than you spent last year on it. If we could hold spending at the same level we had it the year before, I mean, we could make a dramatic difference in the deficit and still spend the same amount of money we spent the year before. So it's not unsolvable, but it's hard to get the votes to do it.
Yeah. No doubt. We're talking with Congressman. Go ahead.
We rail on socialism, but I always like to use Margaret Thatcher's assessment of socialism. She said it works great until you run out of other people's money. Well, what are we doing in this country? We're spending our future generations' money today, and we've been doing that for a long time. So if we want to truly talk about the ills of socialism, let's talk about how we're spending money that we don't have right now.
We're talking with Congressman Bruce Westerman about, the events of the day. We talked a little about the squad. We just talked about this thing that happened this week with this budget deal. We're going to basically raise the debt limit. We're not going to have to deal with it until after the 2020 elections now. What were your thoughts, though, on what happened Wednesday? I mean, I know you're not on the Intel Committee or the Judiciary Committee, I believe, but what were your thoughts with Robert Mueller and this testimony that was finally going to prove something new, even though we've had the report for 3 months? It didn't seem to me that it was really a productive day for Democrats.
I don't think it was a productive day for Democrats. It definitely wasn't a productive day for our country. Instead of debating bills that we could address, health care and those items that are really driving the debt and the deficit, they're running the circus over there, beating a dead horse. And I don't know how many times this makes it they've beat the dead horse, but I don't think anything new came out of it. I don't know why it's not being publicized more that there was a vote on impeachment last week. They brought the papers to impeach President Trump. That there was a motion made to table the vote, which passed, but there was less than 100 people that voted against tabling the motion. So this narrative that's being made that all these people are ready to impeach the president, when they had a chance to vote on it, they voted the other direction. So to me, that should be a signal that it's time to end the charade and move on with doing what's best for our country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, it did get a little bit of press, but not nearly as much as you would think. And now, I mean, kind of going back to the squad and AOC, and you know, there's still people on the left. I mean, I saw some folks out in Hollywood, even after the disastrous performance of Mueller, the mainstream media actually saying and admitting that this was bad for their Democrat narrative and the impeachment narrative. There are still people on the far left that are going to want the impeachment. And so now you have Nancy Pelosi. She's in an awkward position, you know? I mean, is she going to allow which I think Nancy's a radical leftist myself, but I mean, is she going to allow the folks who are even further left than she is to control the party?
Well, the socialist Democrats here are making Nancy Pelosi look more moderate, and I've always thought she was extremely far to the left. But I don't know that she's still got control. I think they've captured the narrative. That the telltale sign is how the socialists put something out, and you got the candidates in the Democratic primary that just gravitate to whatever they say and embrace those positions. So it seems to me like they're on a path of self-destruction, or else they're on a path to destroy the country.
It seems like it to me. Well, Congressman Bruce Westerman, we appreciate you coming on. It's always great to have you, sir. Appreciate you going over the events of the last couple of weeks. It certainly has been exciting.
Well, if excitement's what you're looking for, I guess you can say it has been exciting. Maybe I even heard that the TV drama wasn't what people were expecting it to be on the hearings with Mueller. I saw an article up here about some bar that opened up early, hoping people would come in and watch the TV, but they said there were very few that showed up. So,
wow.
You know, in other high-profile cases, they get a lot more. Like
yeah, I mean, I'd rather be forced to watch an episode of Days of Our Lives than have to sit through that entire Mueller testimony. It was really rough. So.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I didn't watch it then.
Congressman Bruce Westerman, I appreciate it, sir. You have a great weekend, and enjoy your time back in Arkansas during this recess.
Thank you, Paul. Have a good one.
All righty.
Bye-bye.
Congressman Bruce Westerman, everybody, will put this video up at conduitnews.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the little bell to receive notifications. Back in just a moment with your meme of the day.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News.
Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Absolutely. It's red flag law. It's just, they tried to bring up red flag laws and grassroots reacted strongly against it. So they said, oh, you know what? Okay, we won't do red flag right now, but let's just rebrand it. Let's just call it something else and bring it right back up. And of course, you can't turn down something that protects women, right? So that's exactly what they're doing. It's a red flag law.
Let's title the bill to cure cancer. I mean, that's what they do. That's what this is. We've seen this movie before. Okay, so I'm quoting your piece. Many women like myself carry guns for self-defense from thugs and criminals. But provisions in the Disarm Women Act would allow for any dating partner or former dating partner to strip a gun-owning woman of her constitutional rights with just a phone call to a judge. A woman's guns are confiscated with no warning, no due process, just like a red flag law. In fact, we've had a lot of experience with these quickie proceedings, and we know that they are often used by an angry ex to extract revenge on a former partner. And then you talk about a California example. So this is not hypotheticals. We actually have, these instances where it's actually happened. Tell us about California.
Exactly. So California has a red flag law, and this is one of many examples we could use, but there was a cheating husband who used his state's red flag law. He used California's red flag law, went to a judge and said, oh, my abusive wife has a gun, please take it away. And they took away his wife's Glock under the red flag law. So, I guess he's afraid of her finding out and getting free from him. I'm not sure exactly what the situation was, but yeah, that's how he used it.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it really is, it's a huge problem. So what's going to happen? I mean, you think this is going to get through the Senate? I mean, I know it got through the House.
Right. So right now it's in a little bit of state of limbo because it's summer and they're taking some breaks. So it passed the House. The Pelosi's House was very excited about it, and there was you could definitely say there was a bipartisan vote. It was not just Democrats who supported this bill in the House, and that's why we're worried about it, and that's why we need a lot of public pressure in the Senate. So the Senate is looking at it now. I was in D.C. with GOA a few weeks ago to meet with some staffers and let them know in no way, shape, or form should they ever consider anything like a red flag law. I specifically let them know that when Texas tried to bring that up last year, grassroots shot it down and made it clear that nobody was going to get reelected if they ever tried a red flag law. So I hope that struck a chord with some of our senators. But yeah, we're trying to encourage them now to get rid of all the anti-gun provisions in the Violence Against Women Act. The bill, what they're trying to do is a reauthorization, but adding a lot of stuff to the bill. And we just are saying, get rid of that extra stuff you're adding to it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's got to be, well, there maybe not, who knows, but there's probably some good things in this bill. The Violence Against Women Act. They've just now added this, and it certainly is a problem. And so, yeah, the goal would be for the Senate Republicans to just take this language out and pass it without it, and then of course we can get reauthorized. And I'm sure the House will throw a fit, but I mean this really is something that is a foot in the door. We know that the left's goal. I mean, we've talked about this before, Rachel, but the left's goal is to confiscate our guns. It just is.
All right, folks, welcome back. It's Johnny Cash Friday. It's the end of Johnny Cash Friday. We don't have a lot of time. We're going to get to your meme of the day here in just a moment, in just a second. But I was giving you this story about Jeffrey Epstein, quote, trying to kill himself, attempted suicide. But I have a story here that's very interesting. There's a guy who's being held in the exact same facility as Jeffrey Epstein. And 2 days ago, now 3 days ago, the headline, illicit phone
found in cell of ex-cop charged in quadruple homicide. Federal correction officers found an illicit cellular phone in the cell of an ex-cop charged with killing 4 Middletown men, according to federal court documents. Nicholas Tartaglione, Nicholas Tartaglione, 51, a former Briarcliff Manor police officer who lived on Old Mountain Road, faces 17 federal counts, including 4 counts of murder in furtherance of a narcotics conspiracy. Federal prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. So he's in the same facility as Jeffrey Epstein. They find an illicit cell phone. I would love to see those text messages or call history. So he has now been questioned, and he's being asked if he had anything to do with what happened to Jeffrey Epstein and his attempted suicide. The lawyer for Nicholas Tartaglione denies the client was involved in the Jeffrey Epstein injuries. Any suggestion that he assaulted anyone is a complete fabrication, the lawyer said. This story is being leaked to retaliate against my client for complaining to the court about the deplorable conditions at the MCC. But if you scroll down here, let's see, investigators talked to the man who is in the same unit, and they also looked into the possibility that Epstein might have been assaulted, according to NBC News. That's what NBC News reported, that he might have been assaulted, not tried to kill himself. I don't know. It's just interesting. I think the people who are possibly going to be exposed by Jeffrey Epstein's arrest, I think it's a gargantuan risk to a whole lot of people. We're going to continue following this story because it is who knows how far up the chain it's going to go. Here is your meme of the day. In light of Robert Mueller and in light of everything we know, this is courtesy of somebody on Instagram. No, I'm not saying that. You just, somebody on Instagram. You didn't really write that book report, did you, Bobby? It's a picture of the mom from the Brady Bunch in that classic episode where Bobby didn't write his book report. So this is the meme of the day. We're going to post it at Conduit News, at Conduit News, as well as the Facebook page, facebook.com/Conduit News. Telephone number 870-275-9799. You can call or text. Do what? Let's see. I have one more report to get to here. Hang on a second. Oh yeah, here it is. So I want to refer you once again. Go to conduitnews.com and check out this article on Jeff Wardlaw and how he said that it's not a new sales tax. Wardlaw's comments were sought because he was the sponsor of a proposed constitutional amendment to impose a half-cent sales tax for roads here in Arkansas. The tax will be on the ballot in 2020. Was Wardlaw concerned about Arkansas's high sales tax? You know, we're the number one sales tax in the country now, tied with Tennessee. Saying it's a continuation of existing tax. That's what he said. But claiming that is akin to claiming a duck and an elephant are the same thing because they both have a head, 2 eyes, and a mouth. The proposed Wardlaw half-cent sales tax on Arkansans is a new tax that, if passed by voters, would be imposed after an existing half-cent sales tax expires. The existing tax is very different from Wardlaw's proposed tax. The existing tax was levied to pay for specific highway projects, and the tax ends once the projects are paid off. If Wardlaw's tax was merely a continuation of the existing tax, it would only be imposed to pay off those specific projects. But those projects will have been paid off before Wardlaw's sales tax is imposed, and Wardlaw's sales tax that we all have to vote down coming up 2020 is permanent. It's a permanent sales tax. It has no sunset. The one there now does. We should let it sunset. What do you think? Arkansas, be safe.